Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, New St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind adjust the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, New St. Augustine.
In computational physics, extreme scale algebra is the recurring decimal and the elephant in the room. Algebra that arose from discretizing the partial differential equation is the way the supercomputer experienced calculus. Those experimental discoveries of how to massively parallel process across a new internet, that is a new global network of processors, enabled me to forge my path to the farthest frontier of supercomputing, that is the modern supercomputer. What made the news headlines in 1989 was that I invented the technology of the massively parallel processing supercomputer, and that I constructively reduced that technology to practice. And I did so on the 4th of July 1989. And I did so when supercomputer textbooks considered parallel computing, many things at once, to be impossible. And I did so in 1989 when all the 25,000 vector processing supercomputer scientists in the world considered it to be impossible to parallel process the most extreme scale problems arising in computational physics, such as general circulation modeling, to foresee otherwise unforeseeable climate changes. The June 14, 1976 issue of the Computer World magazine reported on a special session on parallel processing that was held at the National Computer Conference in New York City. The Computer World magazine reported that a panelist of supercomputer experts at the 1976 National Computer Conference were of the opinion that, I quote, "Those machines often turn out to be large and clumsy, and several of the large parallel processor designs since then have failed. Now we are moving into the modern era." End of quote. When I began supercomputing in 1974, massively parallel processing, supercomputer coding was like rubbing rocks until they caught fire. Sometimes it is difficult to translate thoughts from one medium to another. The article is written to be read on a page, but the algorithm is invented to be coded on a processor. For the 16 years onward of June 20, 1974, every supercomputer scientist seemed to be writing articles while I was coding supercomputers day and night, and trying to explain my abstract supercomputer algorithms to the layperson or to the vector processing supercomputer scientist is like trying to rub rocks until they catch fire. I began supercomputing 18 months after the last man walked on the moon. On June 20, 1974, the day I began sequential processing supercomputing, it was easier to travel to the moon than to travel to the frontier of the massively parallel processing supercomputer that is the precursor to the modern supercomputer. In the 1970s and 80s, to parallel process across a new internet that was a new global network of 64 binary thousand commodity off-the-shelf processors was like walking alone through a dark rainforest and doing so alone with only a dim lamp. My quest for the massively parallel processing supercomputer was my attempt to discover that the impossible to compute is in fact possible to compute. Parallel processing is the technique of fastest supercomputing that is fastest by computing many things at once or in parallel instead of computing only one thing at a time or in sequence. To the supercomputer scientists of 1989 and earlier, to invent the parallel processing supercomputer was to experimentally discover that massively parallel processing the toughest problems arising in extreme scale computational physics is not a waste of time. I was in the news in 1989 because I figured out how to save time and how to do so by reducing 65,536 days or 108 years of time to solution on one processor that is not a member of an ensemble of processors and reducing that time to solution to only 1 day of time to solution across an ensemble of 65,536 tightly coupled processors that were the building blocks of a new internet that was a new supercomputer and a new computer. My experimental discovery was recognized in the June 20, 1990 issue of the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal reported that my experimental discovery of the massively parallel processing supercomputer will change the way we look at the supercomputer. In the old way, we thought about a conventional supercomputer as powered by one strong ox. That strong ox was my metaphor for one powerful processor. In my new way, I thought about a modern supercomputer as powered by 65,536 chickens. Those chickens were my metaphors for my 65,536 weak processors. I theorized that the grand challenge problems of our children's children will be solved by 1 billion grasshoppers. Each grasshopper was a metaphor for a computer on the internet of the future.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.